Hello and thanks for joining me for some more landscape photography. In this video I'm going to be taking you out for a drive through the mountains of Snowdonia, and along the way we'll just see what catches our eye and make one or two images. Before that, just a quick bit of housekeeping, and some people have written in and said, oh, we noticed you've got a new camera. Well, that's entirely true. I used to have an EM5 Mark III, and I decided I would trade that in when I moved up to the OM1. The reason for that was, I thought that I would probably use it less, which in the end turned out that wasn't a good decision because I really missed having an everyday carry sort of camera. So I looked at my options, and to be honest, this OM1, fabulous piece of micro four thirds, allegedly lightweight. Think about micro four thirds, the lightweight aspect tends to be the lenses, but it's still a bit hefty when I'm just out on my dog walks or out with a family. So I've equipped myself with the Olympus Pen EP7. This was the first of the cameras that came out under OM Digital Systems, but it's still badged up as an Olympus, probably be the last one. Now, it's pretty much a Pen F, but without an EVF. And it's so compact and lightweight. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm not missing the EVF at all because it's just like using your phone but with a proper camera wrapped around it. So the other thing is I'm using this 14-42 pancake lens for the most part. Now, I already had this lens, but when I bought the camera I got another one, so there's one going. If you want a bargain, let me know. But it really is a very good lens, and whilst from time to time I'm sure that I will use my fabulous 14-150 on it, because that doesn't weigh much, to pop in my dog walking bag, this so far has been the lens that I've used the most. Here's a couple of images that I've shared on social media recently taken with this combination. So this first one, you'll notice the thing about this is that I've used f/18, and of course there's that ubiquitous argument about diffraction creeping into the image. Well, I don't buy that at all. The reason I use this is that I'm just carrying a camera, I've got no filters with me, and I wanted a slow shutter speed, as you can see, 1/10 of a second, in order to get that movement in the water. But you can also see from this image that the detail in the foreground is absolutely spot on, and certainly not a compromise in terms of having a lightweight everyday camera. This next image, of course, a dog walking beach picture, sorry about that. But on the other end of the scale this time, widest aperture of this lens, f3.5, because I wanted to drop the foreground slightly out of focus to pull your eye through this fabulous extent of empty beach towards the sunrise light. I think it's worked pretty well. Of course, at 14mm, I'm not going to soften up the foreground very much, even though I'm focused out on the headland pretty much at infinity. But the main thing for me, really happy with the image quality with this camera, and I certainly don't feel that it's going to be a compromise carrying it about for my dog walks, because you never know what you're going to see, but half the time you don't see anything, so I'm not lugging all my gear just in case. Anyway, that's that. Oh, by the way, I will happily not do a review because I'm not a review sort of person, but I'm happy to talk a bit more detail, show you some more images. So if you're interested in a review of the EP7, leave me a comment. I'll need at least 1,000 comments though before I stir myself to do it. Well, I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, let's get out in the car and go and do some mountain photography. So I'm at my first location, and I'm in Nant Fyn, which you may be familiar with if you ever drive up and down from Bethesda to Llyn. But I'm on the other side of the valley on what was the old coach road, now just a single track road, but really very scenic. And of course I'm able to stop right by my car, and I don't even have to get my bag out. I can just reach into the back seat. Everything I need is handy. But I've got a really good and relatively unusual view of Travan from here. Now, as I was driving along to this spot, I knew that there would be this view of Travan because I've driven it many times. But I made a point of coming as far up the valley as I could to still give me the angle I wanted, but so that I've got this view around the flank of Penyrolwen. And it makes a really nice diagonal down into the image, kind of framing Travan itself. And then you've got the flank of the runoff from Cwmidwal over on the right hand side of the image. The bottom of my composition is Afon Ogwyn, as it just runs down the first flat part at the top of Nant Fyn, and then I've got the whole sort of S-curve of the Ogwyn Falls, and then the flank of the climb up to Llyn, and then the sort of razorback shape of Travan in the background. It's actually quite a good opportunity to really get a sense of the scale of Travan. You'll excuse me if I keep snapping shots, but the light is changing by the second, so don't want to miss anything, but you know, I'm happy to talk to you while I'm doing it. My favourite kind of photography, this. Great subject material, bit of drama in the sky, some light just moving across the flank of the mountain. I'm really lucky because at the moment it's only Travan that's getting any light. Everything else is in quite deep shadow, so that works for me. I've already taken one or two shots with some light on the flank of the mountain. There's a couple of grassy areas just sitting up towards Llyn, and they were lit up and it looked really nice. Also a bit of light on the flank of Travan itself. So I've shot that, and now what I'm doing is just waiting for some more dramatic clouds to roll in. When I first got here and I was setting up, the sky looked quite nice and moody. Then I got a period of blue sky. I'm in no rush, so I'll wait it out. But there's some quite nice dark clouds just bowling across. There's a really stiff breeze up there, so I won't have to wait long. But I think that'll make for a better shot. Okay, so I think I'm all done for this one here. Time to hit the road again and see what else I can see. I love this sort of trip out. I'm just driving along, wait until something catches my eye, pull over and have some fun. Now I've parked up in a lay-by on the A4086, which takes you down from Capel Curig to the Penygyrid Hotel and up to Pen-y-Pass. There are some standard shots along here from the many lay-bys of the Snowden Horseshoe. You might be wondering why I haven't stopped back at Llyn, which is a standard honeypot location with a lake and the foreground rocks and all that sort of thing. I've talked about it before, but it bears repeating because it's probably been a while since I banged that particular drum. I'm not keen on that composition of the Snowden Horseshoe because people badge it up on their Facebook and their Instagram, the magnificent Snowden Horseshoe, but their photograph is all foreground rocks and a lake, and the horseshoe is just almost an afterthought, a little sliver on the horizon. So I've come a long way down the valley and I had some lovely light. I've parked up, hopped over into a field because I didn't want any of the fence line in my image. And I'm right in front of the horseshoe. by the time I got set up to talk to you about this fabulous panorama that I had planned, it's completely closed up. The weather has changed in the blink of an eye. It's probably dropped by 5 degrees. There's a freezing wind and really dark grey dramatic clouds piling over Crib Goch and Llywydd. You can't see any of Snowdon summit at all, which I could earlier when I was getting set up. The clag is now spilling over Snowdon summit into the corrie where you'll find Llyn Glaslyn if you ever walk up the miners track. But Crib Goch is actually still sitting proud of the clag. So I've got a really nice profile with dramatic skies behind it. A very easy photograph. I'm zoomed in quite tight with my 40 to 150, shooting at 70mm. I have got my 0.9 soft grad on because the face of the mountain is really dark, and I want to bring my histogram as far to the right as I can get away with it. But there are some little bright areas in the sky and I don't want to clip those, so worth having a grad on. I'm being lazy, I could blend in post, but anyway, so I'm going to stick it out for a while. If you don't hear back from me, it means that the light didn't improve and we'll move on somewhere else. But I'll give it half an hour or so, we'll see how it goes. When I waited it out for about 45 minutes and the light hasn't improved at all. Well, I'd say it hasn't improved. I got lots of drama, but I'd hoped for the odd splash of light in the valley and on the flanks of the mountains. Nothing doing. Looking over my shoulder, there's some beautiful light on Crimpiau, straight down the valley. Unfortunately, Crimpiau isn't really a very interesting shot, so there's no mileage in facing the camera that way. I think what we'll do is we'll head back off now, down the valley, probably head over Pen y Pass, see if there's anything to shoot down Nant Fyn. Now I've come down and stopped alongside Afon Nant Fyn, which runs down from Pen y Pass to Llanberis, and there's lots of lovely little cascades, fabulous rocks. If I can't find an image here, there's something wrong with me. I think what I'm going to do though is I'm going to do something that I'm not sure I've actually shared with you. I'm going to use my ultra wide angle 8-25 f4 for this one, getting really close to one of these cascades because the background doesn't matter too much. It's all about a really dominant foreground, I think. Now the composition for this shot was very straightforward. I've got a really nice little cascade with a drop of about 9 inches and a big boulder either side of it, so it's perfectly framed. I've got a really clear pool right in front of me with lots of beautiful colours on the rocks under the water, so I've got it polarised so I can bring those colours out. There's a tree which is kind of nicely positioned up in the top third of the image. And the tree is blowing around all the time. The wind has really got up in the last hour or so. So what that means is that where I'm shooting this at about 1/10 of a second, something like f8, and by the way, I'm at 8mm, I'm as wide as I can go for this shot because the background makes no difference at all. It's all about this cascade and the pool. But where was I? Oh yeah, 1/10 of a second. Kind of just about the right shutter speed because the water's moving really fast. Anything longer than that, half a second, a second, it just looks like someone's poured a milk churn in at the top. So I do want some structure, even though I want it moving as well. You'll see what I mean. But yeah, the problem I've got is that, well, it's not really a problem actually, I quite like it. The tree is blowing around in the wind, so obviously that's coming out blurred. But because of all the hard static rocks in the image, with the movement in the water and the tree, it's quite a nice counterpoint. I thought about taking a shot of the tree with a fast shutter speed to blend in, but I don't think it'll work. I'm gonna stick with a blurry tree because it gets across kind of what's going on here. And of course I've also got quite a nice bit of drama in the sky, some beautiful clouds just coming over the flank of Snowdon at the top of the valley, with a really bright piece of sky just above Cribgoch. So I've got a really nice ready-made gradient in the sky. So I'm pretty much all done here. Time to head back and take a look and see what we've got. Now, I've really enjoyed that little trip out, and if I'd done my wrap up before having a look at my images on the computer, I'm not sure I'd have been quite so enthusiastic about them. But despite the fact that I wasn't chasing the conditions, I was taking up what was thrown at me, I'm really happy with one or two of these images, and I'll put them up at the end for you to take a look at. But I wanted to make a couple of points to finish off, and I have made them before, but again, as I said in the video, some points are worth reiterating. The first one is this, that if you are interested in mountain photography, you shouldn't be put off by feeling that you've got to go hiking up into all these epic locations, because you can get some great photographs from right alongside the road, or at the very least with a very short walk. And you can get to positions that you don't see very often. So in particular, the shots that I'm going to show you of the Snowden Horseshoe, you don't often see many images from that location. So bear that in mind. You can still enjoy your photography even if you're not really mobile. The second point, of course, is that sometimes you don't have the opportunity to pick and choose when you go out with your camera. But if you just think about what you're doing and work at your craft, you can still get some images, even if you can only spare an hour away from your family when you're on holiday in the mountains. Just, do a deal, get out for an hour, and you'll be amazed at what you can do, even if the conditions on the face of it don't look all that good. Anyway, I'll let you decide. You can have a look at the pictures. I'm going to leave it there for this one. Thank you ever so much for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, why not subscribe and join me next time. Cheers.